Hello guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. Today we're going to be rating magic cards on a scale of 1 to 10. We'll rate these cards on how good they are overall, at least in my opinion. To get these cards, I have quite literally reached into my collection and pulled out 10 random cards. Before you start that video, make sure to stick around to the end because we will rank every card we look at into ranking order to see which card is the best. Now for the first card, we have Ajani, the Great-Hearted. He is a Planeswalker, and he's green and white. He costs 4 mana. He looks to be a pretty good card, just overall. He's only 4 mana, and he has 5 loyalty. He also has a passive ability, giving all creatures vigilance. He would probably make good in a creature deck, where you just put a lot of creatures on the battlefield because of his -2 ability. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker you control. He's a great support card, but honestly, he wouldn't fit in many decks. So I am going to rate this card maybe a 6 out of 10. The next random card in our list is called Grasping Shadows. This is from a Lost Caverns of Ixalan set, and it says whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. Put a Dread counter on Grasping Shadows, then if there are 3 or more Dread counters on it, transform it. To transform it, you'll just flip it over and it turns into a land, kind of like a swamp. So this is a 3-use card basically. Once you put it on the ground, you can only use it 3 times before it flips into this land. When you use it, all you have to do is attack with the creature, and that creature will gain Death Touch and Lifelink. This is pretty good, but it's not the best again. I could see this working in maybe a limited format, but in the much wider formats, for 4 mana, this card is just surely not worth it. So because of this, I am gonna rate it 5 out of 10. The next card is called Niv Mizzet Paran. He is a 5/5 dragon wizard with flying, and it costs 6 mana. This 6 mana is obviously immediately a big problem. To have 3 islands and 3 mountains on the battlefield so you can cast this guy is quite hard, and you'd have to almost build your deck to be able to cast him. Apart from that though, he seems like a very good card. His 2 abilities under the flying says that whenever you draw a card, he'll do a damage to any target, and whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. So say you played any instant and sorcery spell, you get to draw a card, and then he'll do a damage to any player. This is pretty good. It could be better, could be worse. Overall, he's an alright card, so I'll give him a 5.5 out of 10. Our next card is Solkanar the Tainted. He is a 5 mana 5/5 elemental demon. He says at the beginning of your end step, choose one that hasn't been chosen, and then underneath it is 4 abilities. You can either draw a card, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. He deals 3 damage to up to 1 other target creature or planeswalker, or you have to exile him, then return it to your opponent's control. So the first 3 abilities are amazing. 5/5 for 5 mana that lets you draw a card, gain 2 life and your opponent loses 2 life, and deal 3 damage to a creature or planeswalker. This is really good, but on your 4th turn, you have to give him to your opponent, which means the opponent can do this to you. So I have mixed feelings about this card. He is good, and if you can kill him before you give him to your opponent, this could be a great potential and a really well valued card. So because of this, I think I'm going to rate him a 6 out of 10. Our next card is Drana in Lavala. They are a 4 mana 3/4 with flying and vision, so already a pretty good card. They say of activated abilities of creatures your opponents control cannot be activated. This can help with a bit with like locking your opponent out of the game. Underneath it, it says Drana in Lavala has all activated abilities of creatures your opponents control. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. This card seems a very good all-rounder card. It could go in most decks, maybe an angel deck, maybe a vampire deck, maybe just a white-black mid-range deck. Any deck that has white and black in it, it could fit into. It stops your opponents and helps you as well as being a flying body, which are very helpful. Because of this, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Our next card is called Omni Clown Colossus. This is a 10 mana clown robot with affinity for clowns, trample, and it's a 7/7. Affinity for clowns means however many clowns you have on the battlefield is how much less mana it spends to cast it. So if you have 5 clowns, it's only going to cost 5 mana to put on the battlefield. So 5 mana, 7/7 trample is pretty good, but to get 5 clowns, which are not a very common type in Magic, it's not the best. It does have a weird ability, sorcery adventure card. It deals pi damage, which is 3.1415, you know, that one, to each non-clown creature. So it's a tiny bit of a board wipe, but apart from this, I'm not a huge fan of this card. It's quite funny, but apart from that, I'm going to have to give it 4 out of 10. Alright, we're more than halfway, and for our 6th card, we have a land, the Monumental Facade, or Facade, I'm not really sure. When it enters the battlefield, with 2 oil counters on it. You can tap it to add a colorless mana, and you can also tap it to remove an oil counter from it and put it onto a creature or artifact. Yeah, honestly, not the best card, but it is a land, so you could put it in any deck, anytime. The best deck this could go in is maybe an oil deck, which focuses on your creatures and artifacts having oil counters on it, as it is an extra 2 oil counters. But apart from that, this is a pretty mid card. Exactly why I am going to give it a 5 out of 10. Alright, we're on our third last card, almost there at the end. This card is called Gumdrop Poisoner. I really like this card just by looking at it. It's a 3 mana 3/2 with lifelink, which by itself is a great value card. It has an instant adventure on it, meaning you can play that before, and it's only 1 mana. You get a food token. This is pretty helpful, especially in, say, a food deck. When it enters battlefield, target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. This card, I already like. It could go in so many decks. It could go on a food token deck. It could go in a life gain deck, probably the best one for it, because one, it's got lifelink, and it will probably kill a creature when it enters battlefield if you've gained enough life this turn. Overall, great value card, and this definitely is probably the top card so far that has been rated, so I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Second last card is quite a weird card. I did not even know I owned this card. It is a uncommon, which already makes it way less interesting. It's 1 green mana for a 2/1, which is alright, and it has 5 mana to transform it, which means flip it into Sinuous Predator, which is a 4/4, and it can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Honestly, you know, if you're making like a werewolf deck or something, this could go in it. Apart from that, it's just an ordinary card. I'm going to give it 5 out of 10. Our final card is called Cauldron of Eternity. It's 12 mana and a legendary artifact. It says it costs 2 mana less for each creature card in your graveyard. So I guess this could be pretty good in any graveyard deck. It says whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. So once you play this, no more creature cards can go into your graveyard. But it does have a pretty cool ability. It says 3 mana and tap it to pay 2 life. You get to return target creature card from your graveyard to your battlefield. This card, immediately I can tell, a very end game card, but if you did get it out in the right deck, you might have a good chance. Say if you had a graveyard deck which focused on milling or getting creature cards into your graveyard, and then you played this card for really cheap, you could start returning those creature cards to the battlefield for even cheaper. If you got like a 10/10 in your graveyard, you could pay 3 mana and 2 life, and you'd have a 10/10 on the battlefield. Alright, before we end the video, after we've rated all our cards, we are going to quickly use some editing magic to make the 10 cards in ranking order appear just between my hands right about now. And that wraps up the video. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video.